Okay,
all righty.
recording has begun.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. All right, good afternoon, everybody. And I'm calling this meeting of the Tier 3 Regionalization Working Group to order. It is 12:07 on July 21st, 2025. I'm Barbara Neal. The meeting's being recorded, and the recording will be posted to the task force webpage following the meeting. A quick roll call. Jim Mack, are you here?
Here.
All right. And also, of course, we have Rick and Dom and Elizabeth from Televate. We also have, looks like, two members of the public. We have Emily Leinoff. Welcome, Emily, from Newport PD. And Martha Morse has joined us. She left a note in the chat that she's dispatching, but she'll try to listen in as much as she can. So Martha, of course, is from Hartford. Thanks for joining us. And I think that covers everybody on the call. We're still trying to get a hold of Ron, so he may join in, but because we have two, we're going to keep going. Let's see. Do we have, Jim, do you have any changes to the agenda?
No.
Okay, neither do I. So we'll move on. We've already done the introductions. How about approval of the minutes from the July 14th meeting of this working group? Any changes needed to those minutes?
No, I'll make a motion to accept them as printed.
Okay, and I guess I will second that motion, and we will raise your hand, Jim, or say aye to approve
Aye.
minutes. Okay. All right, the meeting minutes are approved from July 14th. And with all of that, Dom, Tag, you're it.
All right, thank you, Barb. I'll move ahead to discussion on just a reminder of the objectives. First, a reminder as to where we are. As Barb mentioned, this is the Tier 3 working group, which is going to address policy and operation-based regionalization. We are addressing Section 3.2 of the System Design Plan, and we are going through each item that is discussed within that plan. Quick check on the schedule. We have 3 working groups running in parallel right now, the Tier 2, Tier 3, and governance. And they are scheduled to go into August. We'll kind of have to play that by ear depending on the progress we make. And we are looking to start the Tier 3 or Tier 1, I'm sorry, working group in the mid-August timeframe. Just a reminder, again, this is the policy and operations-based regionalization. You'll see the members of the working group there from the task force. And also we have a few members from the public and interested stakeholders here. We welcome them. The goal of this working group is to determine priorities and potential recommendations related to the key areas we see here below under policy and operations. There are 3 each under support, operations, and workforce. In previous meetings, we have discussed the 3 support issues, and we discussed last time the policy procedures and protocols of the operations. And we will start off today addressing planning after we've addressed reviewed the action items. So just very quickly, each item we address by reviewing what is provided in the section on that in the system plan report. The text here shows the key insights and trends that are provided in the report, and then the table shows various options to be considered. So this is an example for the standardized QA. We discussed support and administrative roles, and we also discussed GIS. And from that discussion, we have generated 6 action items. I guess I'll go into presentation mode here to make it a little bit bigger. It sounds like somebody else is trying to join. Can someone take care of that? I don't have access to it.
I left them in.
All right, thanks.
We actually have two new guests that have joined since you started speaking.
Okay, great. All right.
Catherine and who just joined in?
Michelle, so
Michelle Hunt, yes.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Okay. So these are the action items that were generated during our discussion of support. The first was Televate to provide a summary of the APCO NINA QA standard. And we have that in development. Rick or Elizabeth, do you have any additional update on that?
Which one are we talking about? I'm sorry. I was
The summary of the APCO NINA standard.
okay, yes. Here comes Ashley Happy as well, too. Yes, Elizabeth put it together a good summary, and I went through it, and I had hoped to get it, a slide, a summary slide. But since I also informed Barb that I wanted to provide some insights to her regarding the E911 board's standards, I'm going to need until next week, if that's okay, to provide additional update.
Thank you, Rick. Item 2 was regarding the existing QA structured programs that might be in place and in use throughout the state. We did review the system inventory document that was generated as part of the task force project, and it shows here those dispatch centers that are reporting structured QA programs include Brattleboro, Ludlow, Montpelier, Newport, Randall, Springfield, and Wilmington. We had reached out to Montpelier, have not received a response there. Our contact, I know Carrie McCool is out for some time. And we also reached out to Emily in Newport. And Emily, if you can share with us, I know you passed the information on to your supervisor, and I reached out to him as well. We are hoping to get an example of your QA program that we can provide to the task force.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have an update. We've been working through, as I mentioned in the email, some pretty significant IT stuff right now. So they're on that, and he is aware of the request and is trying to get you what you're looking for.
Great, we appreciate that. We'll continue and potentially reach out to others as well. Action item 3 was for Barb to provide information on the E911 board QA call handling requirements and criteria. She did provide that information. She provided links and the actual documents, and we have loaded that onto the task force SharePoint to make sure that that is available to other task force members. I believe we may have talked about Televate establishing a public SharePoint, but since the task force has their SharePoint, we have put that in there for access. Action item number 4, also to check the inventory report about ancillary duties. We had a significant discussion about some ancillary duties and some centers report significant amount of time being taken up by dispatchers for ancillary duties. We list some of them there. We did look further into that, and with the intent of potentially finding a way to offload some of this information or some of these duties potentially to a shared group that would hopefully provide more time for dispatchers to do their primary duties. We have gotten more information on the inventory report, and we have a number of people identified to contact to discuss regarding this. So that is still a work in progress, and we are continuing. We have a couple of meetings set up this week with involved experienced dispatchers on the floor to understand this issue better. Action item 5 was also for Barb to provide a list of the GIS data sets that are available. She did do that, and we also placed that onto the task force SharePoint site, so it could be available for all task force members. And action item 6 is one that we are tracking, which is essentially part of the output of this working group when we get there, and in terms of providing priority and potential recommendations to the task force. So nothing as of yet, but that'll be part of our output as we work through this working group. Any questions on those before we move on?
I just have a comment, Dom, and I think you covered it on action item number 4. I did have a conversation with Martha and Scott, who are both on the call, I see, within the past week or so. And they stressed the importance of talking to people on the ground, actually sitting in the dispatch seats to get a better take on the impact of these ancillary duties. So it sounds like that's exactly what you've done with your scheduling of.
We are in the process of doing that, yes. In fact, we have time scheduled tomorrow to talk to Martha. And Martha did provide us contact information for some of the others, and we're working to set those meetings up as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
I understand Scott's on the call now. Yeah, Scott is on our list. So Scott, we're coming after you. Any other comments? Okay, moving ahead from support now into operations. As I mentioned, and we have reviewed these previous meetings. These are the key insights and trends that were provided by MCP regarding operations. There were 3 work items that we discussed. We discussed policies and procedures, and we have discussed protocols, and we generated a number of action items coming out of that discussion, and those are listed here. So we'd like to go through those here before we move on to any of the new work items. 7 was regarding moving documents into a shared folder. I think we've already talked about that. That was put into the SharePoint folder that's been established by the by DPS for the task force. And Emily, you got noticed on an action item here to reach out to your supervisor, Eric, and you have provided his contact information. And as we discussed, we've reached out to him.
Yeah, if I may, is that document that you have on your screen public?
This is part of the action item review. Not at this point.
I just noticed my personal email is there, so I'd rather that not be in a public document.
Okay, we will redact that.
Thank you.
Item 9, it was identified that some dispatch centers, I believe a small number or 4, are using either Frontline or Guardian products to do web-based type of QA. So we're looking into those products to see if it makes sense to broaden their use for potentially for other dispatch centers. And so that is currently in development. Action item 10 was regarding the ancillary duties, and we're looking into that further. So that was already discussed. Number 11 is to develop a list of issues that could potentially, be distracting, that could put dispatching at risk. That was somewhat related to the ancillary duties as well, and we'll be discussing that as part of our meetings that we mentioned that will be ongoing. 12 was for Barb to get written documentation of the caller's interview from Pro protocols. Were you able to locate that, Barb?
Yes, I was, and I apologize for not sending it out. So I will send the all callers interview right after this meeting. And since Ashley Happy's on the call, Ashley, if you can hear me, if you could give me a screenshot of the table of contents for each of the 3 protocols, that would be helpful. I think we're not really appropriate for us to distribute the entirety of the protocols because we don't want them to be used in places where there hasn't been training. So I'll follow up with you, Ashley, if you're not. Oh, she just answered, will do. Okay. So I'll have that for you today, Dom. Sorry about that.
Great, thank you. Action item 13 is regarding looking further into the Vermont Emergency Dispatch Association and their documentation. And Rick has updated this recently, so I'm going to let Rick take this one.
Okay, in response to our discussion last week, and for me, it was a revelation that there is a Vermont Emergency Dispatch Association, and I'm happy to see. And I went on their face page, and I put the URL there, and you know they just created this association in March of 25, according to documentation in the face page. And you know their mission was supporting Vermont dispatchers, facilitating conversations about the profession and promoting training. They also have a member-only web page that has videos of their meetings and a login capability. So I couldn't get into that very much. But again, they repeat the mission of their organization. And I was able to see on that page that they do have bylaws, and there's also a link to their bylaws. And so I haven't yet had an opportunity to talk to Liz Tracy or anyone else, but I know that there are that Martha and other members that are listed here under item 14 have been participating, including Jim Mack has been engaged. I saw some comments from him on the on the Facebook page. But I think this concept of the dispatchers creating their an association, and I know that they have been doing there's been a training program for dispatchers ongoing for some time. By the volunteers, and so I would love the opportunity when I talk to Liz and when we talk to Martha and others, to gain more insight into what they're doing, to see and get their input on what this task force might be able to do to help them and advance their association cause. I understand how challenging it is to to build these capabilities from scratch, support for developing information, updating their pages, and for sharing information. So I see that Emily had her hand up. Is your hand still up, Emily? Did you want to say something?
Yeah, Rick, I was just going to mention that Liz, Martha, and I are the 3 founding members of the association, and we would be more than happy to meet with you at some point to talk to you about our efforts.
Great.
I think it'd be important, that we'll reach out after this meeting, but I think it'd be great to learn more. I think that if the board, this working group learns more and could share some potential recommendations that the task force might be able to do to help you advance your cause, or learn more about what your focus is and where you could potentially get help that's related to this project, that'd be very beneficial. So thanks for offering to talk with us. But I'm very impressed with what I learned there. There was a video there that was very informative from someone from Burlington, I think, but Burlington Sheriff's Office. But I mean, this is a great initiation that they've done, and look forward to learning more to share back with the working group.
Okay, thanks, Rick. And item 14 is identifying people, as we talked earlier, with some on-floor dispatchers with extensive experience, and we're in the process of setting those up as we mentioned. Any further questions or discussion on these action items? Hearing none, just to summarize, so we've addressed the action items that we have coming out of all the work items that we have discussed previously. Now we would like to proceed to the remaining work items that we still have to address in this section. And the first one, still under operations, refers to planning. And I believe this is focused on primarily continue of operations type planning. So you'll see there's 3 options here presented by MCP. And again, you know, we're free to discuss and evaluate these options. And if someone has recommendation, potentially additional options, we're happy to discuss those as well. Option 1 was to continue local control over all strategic, you know, continuity of operations type activities. Option 2 was to have a state-led training and workshop on planning initiatives and continuity of operations. And then option 3 would be to transition to a statewide continuity of operations plan. So I'll open it up to the task force working group. Any discussion or opinions on this item or any of the options presented?
Well, Jim, you want to go first? I'm I think
leaning,
go ahead.
from my vantage point, I lean more towards option 2. But it's not saying that I'm completely opposed to anything.
Right. I think maybe as a starting point, option 2 might be the best option so that we don't have, you know, the state kind of swooping in and saying this is how it shall be, right? It seems more of a partnership, and access to resources that might be needed at the local level that might be more difficult for them to pull together.
Okay, great. Any other discussion or any action items coming out of this work item that we want to record?
I do think there's a pretty valid challenge under option 2, which is, you know, how effective will it be given staffing shortages and that everybody experiences? So I think it might be a bit of a trial run, and probably would be really helpful to have input from stakeholders, including those that are on the call today, if they're ready to speak to it, about what they see as the best option here. I'll throw that out for if no one wants to speak right now. You could certainly be in touch with us. Yeah.
Right. That's great. Or something we Televate can address when we have those discussions with those individuals.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Great. I'll move on then. That completes.
So may I ask you a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Barb, do we want to ask our guests to comment? I mean, there's obviously they're here.
Sure.
I'm you know, I just want to offer them an opportunity to share their thoughts. You know, if that's in case appropriate.
Yeah, no, that's fine, Rick. I just didn't want to put anybody on the spot, but to those of you that have joined, do you have any thoughts to share right now on this item? Okay. Maybe just some time to process it and think about the various options, and then we can go back to Dom's plan of engaging in those conversations in the coming days.
All right, will do. Thanks. That moves us to the workforce section of this portion of the report. And these are the key insights and trends that were taken by MCP following their interviews and visitation to all the PSAPs and dispatch centers. They reported retention rates, looked at staffing levels, commented that many of the comm centers face critical understaffing. It appears like nearly 60% operating below the recommended two telecommunicators on duty throughout the day. I'll just give you a moment to absorb these key insights and trends before moving on. The last bullet refers to formalized training programs, and currently a lack of. We know there's some activity ongoing to develop or have developed some standardized training plans, but it's not mandatory throughout the state.
So I have a question here that maybe Emily or Martha could answer. When you do your basic telecommunicator training, how many, I mean, can you give us a sense of what number of agencies in Vermont are participating in that? Do you have like some regulars? Or are they coming in from all directions, or what do you think?
Yeah, so it really depends. And we're trying to identify how to increase the number of students we have in these trainings. One of the challenges that we have are when we have an agency that has somebody they want to send through this training, we try to create a training for them and then see who else might be available to join. So because we don't have set dates and we realize having it twice a year might not be great if somebody gets hired in between those two time frames. We've had some very small classes. The first one that Liz and I had offered, we had over 6. I'm not going to try to count all the people. It was a decent sized class. I would say we've had 2 classes that were right around the 6 to 10 range, I'd say. And then we've had a few of the other classes that are less than that number, but usually we can find anywhere between 2 and 4 to join in. And as far as locations, we have had Bennington, Manchester, Middlebury, Newport. There were some others, and I can't remember, Woodstock. There were some other agencies that came in, and that's for the 40-hour class that we offered, the basic dispatch training. We also have been offering numerous single-day in-service trainings.
Okay, that's helpful though, just to know you are getting kind of a range of agencies participating, so that's good.
Yeah, we're trying to spread the word out and have the academy either host or the fire academy host it so that we can get more buy-in from agencies. I think having it at one of the training academies, I think, just adds to the importance of why this training is necessary.
Do you know if any of the agencies require it, or is it just more of as an opportunity that they may take advantage of?
I don't know if agencies necessarily require it because it hadn't been offered in 10 years, I think. And so if there was a specific requirement for it, I think the agencies would have maybe done that on their own to fill that gap.
Right.
As Michelle mentioned, state police also host their own basic dispatch school. So that one is separate from us.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Barb, mind if I ask a follow-up question?
Go right ahead.
So, Emily, I mean, what are your thoughts off the top of your head on what the working group and the task force could do to advance training standards and participation? I mean, what what are your, off the top of your head thoughts on this?
I have a lot of thoughts, Rick. So I will say, and I think Liz had put it in an email to somebody, one of my catchphrases that I try to say is every single person that we dispatch for has to have a certification of some sort. And yet the person that is sending them to these calls, gathering the information that dictates how they respond to these calls, is not actually mandated to have any kind of certification or training unless it's department required, or in the case of 911 required. And so I think trying to get the buy-in from the agency heads is where we could really benefit with our training initiatives. And that's where I think this task force might be able to help us, is getting the buy-in from the agency heads to say, this is valuable training, it is necessary training, and you should be sending your dispatchers through some kind of basic training. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be brand new dispatchers either. We have had a multitude of experience levels in our basic dispatch class, anywhere from 2 days to 10 plus years. People have attended our trainings and they've walked away with valuable insight. And I know from my perspective, I've been dispatching almost 20 years, and every single time I teach one of these classes, I'm still learning something from the students, from another instructor, different topics that we're pulling in.
Is there anything that the could be done to help with the training? I mean, obviously, I think there's been a lot of discussion with the task force about the fundamentals of requiring certification. What else could beyond assisting getting the agency heads to agree? Is there anything that what else could be done?
Well, I think the other challenge that we have is we don't have a single entity that's offering this training. Liz and I have been very fortunate to work for agencies that are supporting our efforts. And it would be great if we had an entity like the Academy, or, that's one of the reasons why we really started making some movement on the VITA initiatives. We need an entity that is the one that is willing to host this training, so that it's not the responsibility of our single departments to be hosting that.
Okay. I'll have additional follow-up questions when we get together. All right, because this is what the task force needs to hear and to share back and to make to guide their recommendation development. So for those of you who may not be aware, I mean, we went over it, but the working groups, their focus and their I guess their purpose is to develop preliminary recommendations to deliver back to the complete task force for final review and approval before presentation to the legislature. So the working groups have been divided up based on key categories of public safety communications in Vermont. And so I'm really glad with this your participation, because you're the folks that this group is going to impact. And so having your engagement and ideas is fundamental. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, or should we move on? Okay, our first work item under workforce then is recruiting and hiring. So based on those key insights and trends that we saw earlier and analysis done by MCP, they've come up with 3 potential options for the task force to consider. Number 1 being hire at the local level for all job classifications. I assume that's essentially how things work today. Option 2 was to create standard job classifications and job descriptions and promote the reclassification of telecommunication as first responders. That's kind of a nationwide trend that's ongoing that we all hope somehow gets recognized. And couple those with job posting websites or that all communication centers can access. And option 3 is to create a statewide hiring plan. Includes creative solutions for some of the staffing issues and also including social media and community engagement. So I'd like to open this up to the working group and beyond, some of our experts on the call. Any comments or thoughts on this item and these potential options?
I think this, I kind of see option 2 similar to the last one we looked at on planning, I think it was.
Yes.
Where you could have, some entity create like recommended job descriptions that would include all the requirements for training and continuing education and basic, skills and knowledge and all of that, that could support agencies as they go about their own business of hiring. I don't know, even having been out of the PSAP for so long, I can still feel a little bit of the get off my turf feeling when I read through these options. A lot will depend too, I think, on where we go with governance, where we go with either the organic or the inorganic regionalization.
Yes.
But
right.
This, I don't know, I think the hiring and all of that right now, and for probably some good time into the future, really belongs at the local level. But I'm certainly open to having my thoughts expanded on that. I saw Martha just put a comment in.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Martha says she agrees with Barb. Dispatch centers might have different needs. So thanks, Martha.
Well, if I could ask, the reason for the understaffing that is seen today, with many of the dispatch centers not being staffed to the level that's of approved position, if you will, is that primarily a funding issue, or is that the lack of qualified candidates, or a combination of that? What do we see currently?
I see a lack of funding, a lack of funding in some cases. But I also see, years ago, I might see 12 applications for a job position. Today, I don't see that many applications coming in for an opening. So there's a lot of people that aren't even applying for it. Why would I want to go work at Shelburne or St. Albans or Middlebury or wherever if I've got to work weekends and evenings, and there's a lot of other options for employees out there nowadays.
I see. Thanks, Jim.
Hey, Jim, you think that is there any pay rate issues? I mean, are we not attracting the people because there are pay rate issues or lack of pay, or there's not enough folks in the labor force of interest? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, pay is one. I think personally, I think pay ends up being a more minor issue, because some people will stay working at agencies even if they're not being paid as high as what they could get at another agency, because they like it there. They like the management, whatever. They like the environment. So pay is not as big an issue, I think, as there's just not as many people that are interested in getting into working in dispatch or law enforcement. EMS. You don't see the number of applicants. Michelle, I think, has a question.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to piggyback off of what Jim is saying, and because I did a not really a study, but I was just trying to look at how many job openings there were between Montpelier and Williston, and I found like 500 at one point just in that span. So in Chittenden County, especially, your job posting is one of hundreds that people are looking at. And when it comes to the pay, more I think of the younger generation is looking for time off. They're not looking for the amount of money that they can make. And then they're also a lot of them reach out to me and say, can this be done remotely? So I know that that's being explored in some places about having remote positions like that, but obviously we will never have an entire dispatch center that could be working from home. So I think that the time is really a key factor in this.
Do you think that we should investigate? I know you're saying you're investigating remote work strategies. I mean, we're going to need to continue to attract talent to dispatching, and so I think in my opinion, I think it'd be worth sharing with the legislature some of these challenges and some of our recommendations. And so I'm glad that you're engaged. That we have you engaged now, so that we could continue to get your input on this item. And, yes, I can see remote work coming out of COVID has become more prevalent. And so is that an option? I know there's only so much we can do. If it's not salary, I mean, we are competing. I mean, I think I shared with the team that I've seen that the state offering thousands of dollars to move to the state, to increase the population of the state. So, anyway.
Yeah.
So problem, Rick, go ahead. Go ahead, Jim.
You can give us, $5,000, $10,000 to move to Vermont. I know some people that have done that. They had good paying jobs. In fact, neighbor here, he works remotely. So it was a bonus for them to move here. Plus they had family here. I'm not going to be able to attract somebody from California to move to Vermont.
Yeah.
Work in my dispatch 24/7, 365. Emily has a comment.
Yeah, please do.
So reading through some of these workforce options, there are a lot of interesting things in each of the different options available. And one of the things that really strikes me is, I grew up in a fire department family and I heard the tones every single time they went off, but there was still a part of me that had no idea that that was a person, like that was their job, that was their career, until I really started working and interning in these fields. And I there is a huge opportunity for somebody, whether it's individual agencies or a specific entity, to really do a lot of public education about what the job is. Rick, as you mentioned, it was Burlington PD that started doing videos explaining, little segments of what the job is. And I think that that's fantastic. I think the 911 board could have a great opportunity to explain how 911 calls are coming in, how questions are asked, what answers we're looking for, how those different resources are sent on calls. I think that there's a lot of opportunity from a lot of different entities that are currently in existence to really push that public education, but then also working with all of the same schools and organizations that police, fire, and EMS and military are all recruiting from well. So getting into the schools and, whether it's job training or internships, coming into, I know I've talked to Castleton University before, to some of their criminal justice classes about this is another career that you could choose, and really pushing that, you know, in this day and age, this is a career. It is a profession. It is not a job. And really pushing that as a profession. Sorry, it's Monday, so I'm just now stumbling over words. And really using social media more. Also potentially working with different unions that dispatchers are operating in within the state, leveraging that as far as when we're talking about time off benefits, scheduling benefits, a lot of that is dictated in union contracts as well.
I want to read a couple comments that have come in the chat. So Martha Morse added a few minutes ago, we've historically been fully staffed. Within the last year, that's been a challenge. Jim is correct. The type of job and demands are their biggest challenges, it appears. With New Hampshire right next to us, they don't have an income tax. So applicants that live in New Hampshire will try to stay with New Hampshire departments. And then Ashley Happy, I think this was as Emily was speaking, said, agreed. Younger people are also looking for what they deem are professions and not just a job. The lack of classification and standardized training is a consideration when someone is deciding to work someplace with longevity and professional development in mind. And I thought there was one more comment, but I don't see it. No, I guess not. I just wanted to throw that in the mix.
So with that said, I'm wondering, I like the idea that we're looking at this as a profession and not just a job. I think that even at the national level, APCO has been pushing for telecommunicators to be, you know, a profession. And right now there's a debate over that. But what about the university? Could the University of Vermont or other universities, could they be engaged to help promote what we do? What are your thoughts on going beyond social media and the unions and engage the universities?
I guess I would have to. I think there probably are opportunities there. I would have to understand what kind of a process that would be to even initiate the conversations. I know there's been some level of activity at the high school, technical school level, at least in one school, I think up in the Newport area, Emily, they used to teach the basic telecommunicator course. I don't know if that's still ongoing, but I think of places like the technical colleges too around the state. So I think that's probably worthy of exploration, but I would have no clue how to do it. So we would need to figure out that piece of it.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on this work item?
Kate just
Catherine,
added. Yep, go ahead.
Sorry. Okay.
Kate added in comments that we are doing an internship program with the Tech Center in Springfield, Vermont. That's great.
If you could provide more information or a link to that, that'd be helpful so that we could share with others and learn more about it. Thank you, Kate.
All right, I think we're ready to move on to the next work item.
Yep.
And that is standardized training for new hires and current employees. And we've already had some discussion on this already today. And based on MCP's investigation, they have come up with 3 options that we see here. So option 1 being to allow each region to create a training program specific for their perceived needs. Option 2, create a list of approved training programs for new hires and for professional development for each communication center to choose from. And then finally, option 3 is to develop a statewide certification program for all job classifications. Thoughts or comments on this item and the potential options?
Again, I think it depends a lot on where we go, like with governance.
Right.
But I think a first step might be making sure all of the centers are aware of what the training standards should be. So maybe again, going back to that option 2 resources idea that we had on the other two. I could easily see it though moving into an option 3 at some point where there's a statewide certification program that everybody goes to and then goes back to their respective agencies. Jim, did you want to add anything here?
I was going to agree with you. Probably starting option 2, phasing into option 3 ultimately.
And I see Emily and Michelle both have their hands. Oh, it looks like Michelle's hand went up first. So go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, no, I was just going to say the same thing. I think, at the base level that there should be a standard for everyone to complete. But the training program itself should be agency specific. So like with our training program, I have it built in now with lesson plans. And so each phase is going over the policies, at our particular agency to follow doing certain things. So where you have this statewide use of, NCIC and warrants and things like that would be standard across the board. But how we handle a pursuit might not be the same way as another department. So things like that would need to be specific to the local agency.
That's helpful. Yep. Thanks, Michelle. Emily, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about training all day long, but Michelle just highlighted a really important topic that I wanted to make a note on was somebody could create a standardized way to train dispatchers and a standard way of doing everything. But another important piece that needs to be looked at is how are the responders being trained and how are our responders responding to these scenes? So as Michelle mentioned, how I dispatch a pursuit is going to be different than how she dispatches a pursuit, but also how one of my police departments operate in a pursuit is going to be different than another police department operates in a pursuit. And I might dispatch both of those entities at the same time. And so just wanted to throw that out there as an idea that while I believe in standardization to a certain extent, there are a lot of things like Michelle said, NCIC, all of that should be very standard. But looking at how fire, EMS, police are responding to these incidents, there's a lot of factors that go into that from a dispatcher standpoint that we have to now know this police department does this police department does this one does something completely different.
So this is interesting because I've heard comments along these lines before, and do you ever see a world where the communications center sets the standard for the agencies it serves? I mean, with their input, of course, but so that you could get, I mean, it's got to drive dispatchers crazy to have 3, 4, 5, however many different ways of dispatching the same event. Do you see a world where the emergency comms center could be the one that dictates that? And if that's the service that agency wants, then they come to you for their work? Or do you think that's just a pipe dream?
So I think that there could be some. I don't think that there could be a blanket policy. And Scott and Martha are on this. Scott would be probably a better one to ask, but I know that when Hartford Fire had very specific and still has very specific run cards for their fire calls. And I remember that my dad, when he was working there, he was kind of pivotal in creating a lot of those and inputting them into some kind of document for dispatchers to recall from, because the chief at the time was upset that dispatch couldn't remember when there was a structure fire at this address, this is the response plan, until you actually write out all the response plans and there's thousands of permutations of it.
Yeah.
And I believe in Hartford, there was a conversation with newer fire departments that they were taking on that this is the dispatch service that we offer. You need to provide us with run cards. I don't recall there ever being a conversation saying this is what the run cards have to be and this is what your response has to be, but you have to have something for us to go off of. And I like something like that.
That makes sense. I mean, in the conversations I've had on this in the past, it's felt more like dispatchers have to remember all these different things. So a run card at least gets you closer to the standard is there's a run card for every department, you know. So that's positive. Michelle has her hand up now. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, and I also just remember from consolidation that we had all of these agencies, and now we have a CAD system where every agency can do whatever they want. So we have no consistency in call types. We have no consistency in, how the calls are coming in. And so to get people on the same, like we couldn't, even though we put it out to these agencies, like, hey, if we're dispatching for you, you need to, at the very least, have these call types so that our dispatchers aren't trying to figure out, like, okay, you call it a crash, but you call it an accident, and you call it this, and like, so we end up punching a suspicious sometimes for people because they just have this long running list of call types, and we don't have time to sit there and try to, run through and figure out what they called it. So
right.
Getting the communication out there, it was the same thing with, there was something else too that we had put out, like record rotations and things like that, to build in their record rotations. And they didn't, we have agencies that never did that. And so it's like, there's got to be some way to communicate these standards in a way that everybody is going to follow them. Because I just know that we have struggled with this, trying to get everybody on the same page, and to be like, if we're going to dispatch for you, this is what you need to do. And to get people to do that sometimes can be very difficult.
Great. Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, may I ask how would you recommend we we address that? So if they're the idea, we're documenting these ideas so we can record them and follow up on them. But if we need the responders and the agencies that represent the responders to provide run cards, to provide their response plans, and to also be educated on how dispatchers work with them. What do you recommend that we do to make sure that we can advance that?
My honest opinion is that we need to get a true CAD.
Well, that's the work of another group.
That's another working group that certainly that's being looked at.
Yeah, there's common agreement across there's common agreement on that one. Yeah, Jim is on that working group. Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Tim Francis has a question, I think.
Yeah.
I was gonna comment on something, but I think it just got answered.
Okay.
I heard a lot of talk about the differences between agencies and how they want things handled. But I do know there is, of course, some training that's been developed. I guess Liz Tracy has been involved in that. Martha, it sounded like you've been involved in that, and you've held a number of training classes. How is that handled today, where you have instances where some of the activity of dispatcher will vary based on the agency being dispatched? Anyone comment on that?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to comment on that. So the trainings that Liz and I are hosting, a lot of what we're teaching are more vague topics, I guess. I mean, we go into call types, but at the end of the day, we really drive into these dispatchers that local protocol supersedes anything that we teach you. And so how I might have been trained to handle a burglary case might be different than another agency, and that agency ultimately is the one that hired them, and you have to follow your local protocols. We talk about a variety of ways that you can handle those calls. And so trying to give the insight of these are things that you could be doing is one way that we accomplish that. I really like to teach by example, so I try to use examples as often as I can, especially sort of those like nuanced calls that don't happen all that often. And when you really start having to think outside of the box as a dispatcher, and this has now happened, what do we do? Because we didn't plan for this. We didn't expect this to happen. So now we're kind of on the fly. And it's more about teaching the skills to be able to do that than necessarily the specifics, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yes. A couple comments in the chat. Martha Morse said a little while ago, everyone has run cards here at Hartford Dispatch and with the CAD system. And with the CAD system, we can provide the end user with detailed instructions. And then Kate added that this variety of response configurations, if you will, is one of the reasons that it takes so long to train new dispatchers. And finally, Martha came in again in response to your comments, Rick. You need to meet with fire departments and help them understand the importance of the run cards and maybe help build them. It's a lot of work, but the payoff is huge.
I fully agreed, and I wrote Martha's and other comments into my notes here. I mean, we'll go back and obviously have our chat notes, but this, these bullets are key to include in, for legislative understanding. And, if the working group agrees to it, we would, find this as a preliminary offering and try to put a budget around it.
Yeah. And Emily's hand is up again. Go ahead, Emily.
Yeah, sorry. So the last comment that you mentioned, Barb, one of the things that I have started doing is I was asked to develop a training course for a regional fire school here in Newport. So I went into their fire school and taught their firefighters, and I think it was mainly fire. There were some overlap with EMS, but I taught them about what dispatch does, how calls are received, how we gather information that they need, and talked about what that communication back and forth should look like. Again, it's not going into specific policies of when you get on scene, you have to do a scene size up. This is a tool that's available to you, and this is the reason why it's important information. Even for me as a dispatcher, a scene size up doesn't really do a whole lot for me, but we are the ones reiterating to the other responders that can't hear from a fire ground frequency. And I was invited to teach that at the Upper Valley Regional Fire School as well, which is coming up. And so it sparked this idea of, I've been teaching police officers for 15 years at the police academy how to communicate with dispatch and what resources dispatch can offer them. And so now we can dive into that with the fire world. And I would love to start offering that to more entities, or having, different fire and EMS agencies throughout the state realize, oh, we can contact our local dispatch center and have them explain to us what they can offer to make this communication better. And I think that that is a key role when we talk about like run cards. Not every fire department has a run card, but if we have the ability to get those run cards set up in a CAD system, then they could have that ability, and they could use it.
Great. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this item?
I don't think so now.
I believe we have one more in this section, and that's on staffing. And the options presented were to continue current staffing practices, basically status quo. Option 2, hybrid staffing in a physical location. And then option 3 relates to hybrid staff remotely. Okay, and we can look at the different strengths and weaknesses here, or challenges that were identified. This gets back to some of items that were brought up previously. Any thoughts? How practical are some of these options here, like 2 and 3, for example?
So it looks to me like option 2 assumes some level of regionalization, right?
Yes.
I'm not sure we're there yet, but
Right.
maybe. And the hybrid staff remotely, Bonnie talked a lot about that in the stakeholder meetings early on and how that's happening in some places around the country. I don't know that I know enough about it or feel comfortable enough about how you would do that securely to really have an opinion right now. So I don't know. Jim, what do you think?
I know call taking is being done, not just in 911 world, but if you call JetBlue reservation, you're talking to somebody that's remote in most cases. I'm not sure about the security implications trying to do dispatching, accessing NCIC and all of that stuff, how the infrastructure that would have to be set up, and what ramifications are there. I know I go through an audit of all my computers. Does that mean that a computer that I'm using at home is going to be my company computer, or is it my home computer I'm logging into remotely?
Right.
So there are some implications here. I think it would get us a few people potentially that instead of answering for JetBlue or somebody else, maybe they would answer 911 calls and dispatch for us. I don't think we're there yet. I think that's still a ways out for us. The hybrid option number 2, I can see that happening far sooner, but I'm not really sure if, I'm going to use Emily, Newport up there. Is Newport going to want to work in, say, St. Johnsbury in a new facility that's built somewhere in between? That I don't know if you'll have St. Johnsbury dispatcher and Newport dispatcher sitting in the same room working for 2 separate agencies. I know Williston and Essex are doing it right now in Essex, but so some of that is already happening now.
The Essex dispatcher is sitting in Williston, or I might have messed up these.
Williston dispatcher is sitting in Essex.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thought. We've done that on emergency basis in Rutland and then in St. Johnsbury. In Rutland, we pulled in dispatchers to help us during a critical incident. And in St. Johnsbury, I was able to go down and sit in their dispatch center. It worked out in St. Johnsbury because I also had my own officers that were working during that time. So I was able to dispatch them and not have as many CAD issues. But it's an interesting idea. I'm not at a level where I can say that that's, a consideration that we are open to or not open to. That's not really one of my jobs.
It sounds to me like we might need a little further description and definition of these option 2 and 3 as to exactly what MCP is recommending potentially here. So I think Elevate can take that as an action item to try and get further information.
Yeah.
Tim Francis has a comment.
Yep.
I was just going to throw a little clarity into the Williston Essex thing as I worked there. They're staffing Williston and Essex people. They're identical qualifications to do the same thing. Really, the only difference is the paychecks come from 2 different towns. But training-wise, policies, procedures, you're responsible for knowing both. And it works fairly well. I think to the point of option number 2 here, I think it might behoove people to, as they look at it, to start with, okay, if we have a major event like another COVID style event or something, and we have to move our dispatch center, we cannot staff it, how do we start doing that? And when you look at number 2 through that lens, it kind of makes a little bit more sense that way of, or even like potentially remotely being able to dispatch, say, St. Albans from the Shelburne PSAP, and doing it that way. I think that might be where the focus number 2 should start with that, and then kind of build out from there for more of a long-term thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could follow up with what Tim just said, Televate, back in COVID, worked with Arlington County, Virginia, to help them develop the technology and particularly the connecting of remote dispatching. They went through a period where everyone in the dispatch center had COVID, and so they had to go remote, and we had to help them configure it pretty quickly. So redirecting calls to remote locations. NCIC was an issue, and that had to be handled back at the center because we couldn't get that addressed quickly enough. So those calls were kind of centralized and not sent to unsecured computers at folks' homes. The technology is there to do it. And I think building on what Tim says, to develop here's what you can do in the event that we have to remote dispatch for any particular reason, makes a lot of sense. And at a minimum, something like that, if not available, or if it has been developed by someone in the state and documented, it should be beneficial there. I see there's another post.
Yes. Michelle, I just posted in the APCO forum to see if there are any agencies using remote workers and how they are CGIS compliant. So she's doing some legwork for us. Thank you, Michelle.
Okay. Thank you.
It's just, as you're discussing this, I think about the 911 system, which I think everybody on this call knows uses the same equipment, the same training, the same protocols at all 6 PSAPs. And really, any certified call taker could go into any one of those PSAPs and log into a computer, a 911 computer, and take calls either for the agent. Well, they'd have to have the appropriate login, right? Whatever their login is will determine where they're drawing calls from. So it could be their own, their home base. They could have a role-based access that would let them answer the hosting agency calls and so on. So that's how it works with us, but that's because we don't necessarily do that in practice, though. That I don't think that's a common occurrence, but it certainly could happen. But same equipment, same training, same protocols makes that possible in my view, and it would be a trickier animal with disparate systems and protocols and all of that.
Right. Thank you all. Recognizing time frame, I'm going to, unless there's a burning question or comment, I'm going to
one more comment actually from Ashley Dom.
Okay.
She says in the chat, I don't know if they still are, but Mad River Valley Ambulance was dispatching from home. They may be an agency to speak to about their operations. That's a good idea. Thank you, Ashley.
Okay. Make sure we have that recorded, and we'll do that. Going back to the agenda here, we need to move on to next steps. And the next steps will be to address the action items that we have recorded. Rick and Elizabeth and I will get together following this and review our action items. And then we will obviously work on those and report for the next meeting. The next meeting, I believe, is already scheduled. Elizabeth, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's scheduled for next Monday, the 28th. At the same time?
Yes, same day of the week, same time.
Great, thank you. And Barb, I guess I'll send it back to you to address the final items on the agenda.
So we've had a lot of good discussion today along the way, which I for one, really appreciate, but I want to give one more opportunity for anyone on the call who has additional comments could share those with us now. Does anybody have more to share? Okay. Hearing nothing, I'll assume we're all set and we can move to adjourn the meeting. I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, Jim, of adjourning? Okay. All right, great. Thank you very much to everybody that joined today and for all your comments. And Rick and Dom and Elizabeth, once again, thanks for herding all these cats and reminding us of our action items and so on. But I thought this was a very productive meeting. I hope others did too.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you all.
I would encourage our guests to attend the next meeting and to continue participating. We will definitely be reaching out to you one-on-one, so stay tuned from emails so that we can coordinate some get-togethers. But thank you for our community participation. Very beneficial.
Very much. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your afternoon, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Bob.
Bye.
Thank you, Michelle, for your email.